I've become massively obsessed with self-development over the last 10 years since going on the entrepreneurship journey. I'll pay as much money to learn that shortcut. To me, coaching, mentorships, the proximity of those groups, those are just time machines. Those are getting me to where I want to be quicker.
Welcome back to the Cash Flow Podcast, where we talk about turning properties into profits. I'm your host, Jason Yoss. Today I have with me Kelly Gilson of Infill Innovations.
Yeah, that's our latest company. We're moving and grooving.
Kelly, thanks for being here with me. We've known each other a while, and I'm always in awe of some of the work that you do and the philosophy that you bring with it. And so I really want to sit down with you today and kind of share with the audience how you've gotten to the level that you're at and this awesome new program that you're working on. So just let's kind of start with the basics. How long have you been doing this, basically?
Yeah, so I've been in real estate for the last 10 years, started out with sales, and then 4 years ago or so, did my first flip, started buying out-of-state properties, recently constructing 2 single families from ground up, and now we are acquiring properties that we're going to put, 15 to 45 units on each one of these properties.
I love it. We're going to get into the high density program. Let me back up a little bit. What set you on the path? Like, was it a mentor? What was the catalyst to get you going?
In terms of real estate, we moved out here. We had to make money, so we just jumped into it. And I actually hired a Rich Dad. I read the book, Rich Dad Poor Dad. I hired a Rich Dad Poor Dad coach. And so he just kind of poured into us, and it just really opened up my mind to, holy cow, in real estate, you can literally do anything. Every single thing is possible. And that just set my mind on fire to what can be done. So we just start exploring different avenues, joining different masterminds. Huge believer in proximity is power. And just, like I said, just wasn't afraid to spend money to get lessons or to be a part of groups of higher thinking
I love that you say that, because somebody will go drop $200 to $500 on a weekend and they won't put anything near that into their education.
Yeah.
It blows my mind.
I mean, our country as a whole, you have no problem spending $50,000, $60,000 a year on a college education. And then you graduate and you don't have to improve yourself anymore. But I've become massively obsessed with self-development over the last 10 years since going on the entrepreneurship journey. And I'll pay as much money to learn that shortcut. To me, coaching, mentorships, the proximity of those groups, those are just time machines. Those are getting me to where I want to be quicker.
Any learning curve is going to be steep, and it's either you're paying for it or you're spending time. So talk to me about that real estate investment philosophy. You've been focusing on this. You have the Rich Dad Poor Dad background, the coaching. What has that set you up in terms of philosophy right now? Yeah,
in terms of philosophy, and it's really changed and grown over the last 4 years. Immediately it was like, oh, we're selling houses, we're making this income, but then we did our first flip. And we made 6 figures on that first flip. And then that just opened up our eyes. Okay, now it's all time and money, right? And you start to play that equation. You can spend less time on a project and make more money. And then we can take that, those profits. And that's how we bought our first property out of state. I finally took a different vantage point of, you make the profit, you go spend the profit. But my wife was literally like, hey, we just did really well on this first flip. Go buy a Tesla.
Go treat yourself, right?
And I'd been talking about it for a couple of years, and I really dove back into the Rich Dad Poor Dad mindset of assets over liabilities. And I said, let's try to gamify this a little bit. So we purchased a property out of state. We end up rehabbing it for $30,000. Refied it and then rented it out, and our payment was like $1,400, $1,500, and our rent was $2,500. I look up what Teslas cost a month, and it was about $900. So all of a sudden, we have a tenant paying for my Tesla, a tenant paying down that mortgage, providing housing, providing a really quality house, but then paying down the mortgage. You get the depreciation on the tax side, and then you get the appreciation. Over the last 3 or 4 years, I was like, oh. There's a new game.
There's a way to play this, and I love how you describe it in terms of a game. Now, you're not showing up to these first investments with tons of money in your pocket. Where's this money coming from? How are you getting money to purchase these properties?
Yeah, I'm a huge believer in OPM, other people's money.
Other people's money.
Yep. So I was in contact with a hard money lender. It was it was actually the same hard money lender that lent me for the flip in San Diego. I used that hard money to burr this property in Nebraska. So they lent me the money. I think I was all in. We purchased that property for like $230,000.
Right.
I think I came to the table with like 12 or 13% down, but that also included the renovation.
The full or half the renovation?
The full renovation. Now they don't give you all the money up front. You come with that down payment, and then what happens? So I had like $25,000, $30,000 held back. So I'd pay $30,000 to my contractor. You call up, you make a draw request, they reimburse you the $30,000.
Right.
So we did that. For that one, it only took $30,000 to renovate. And then that property, right when we were finished, like I said, we bought for $230,000, we put $30,000 into it, and it was worth like $320,000. So we just refinanced out of that. Interest rates had gone up a little bit during that time, but it still cash flowed perfectly, and we were able to get back almost all of our money.
And so you were still able to use that BRRRR method. What everybody talks about, the buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and redo it.
Yep.
You were able to do that, and you did it out of state though, not here in San Diego.
Yeah, I did it in Omaha, Nebraska. I'm originally from Nebraska. My entire family lives in Omaha, Nebraska. So I was going back there anyway. It was an easy sell for me because I had actually taught in the school district that now I own multiple properties in. So I kind of knew the community. Like I said, I go back there. You should at least know a little bit about it, or somewhere where you want to travel that you're not afraid to go back there. Because I've had to go back there on a couple of occasions, take care of some things. But, I'm going to see my family twice a year anyway. So
and that's huge that you bring up. Like, you bought out of state. There's nothing wrong with that. But I hear all the time investors talk about, I bought in Pennsylvania. I bought in Ohio. Okay, have you ever been there? Do you know anything about it? Do you know the landlord-tenant laws? And if you don't know anything about it, that's a scary situation. Here, you leveraged a place that you were familiar with and you were comfortable with being able to invest there.
Yeah, and did I know 100% of everything? No. We dove in, we learned some, but we almost, a couple years before that, I almost started buying properties in Rochester, New York. We actually flew out to Rochester, and I learned so many things about the community that Kodak had went under, the Kodak camera company had went under there, and here's this abandoned building, and then start hearing all these horror stories of these tenants and the property management. And this is from local real estate agents that were very, very successful. And I was like, No,
not doing it here.
We're not doing it here because I'm not going to go fly 6 hours across the country if something goes wrong.
And so you did the BRRRR. You got rental properties, long-term rentals. Is that correct?
Yeah, those are all long-term rental.
And then in the beginning, once you got set up, you were doing it all on your own, and then you made a transition to a property manager, so you don't have to worry about running out there.
Yeah. Again, time and money.
Right.
At first, the cash flow was important, and then it became less important. I got a call. I think something flooded. I had to deal with it. My brother had to help me deal with it, get a plumber out there. And I finally just said, man, my time is way too valuable, either to my wife and kids or to my current work situation. So, I called up a property manager. I don't see anything. I see the check. Hit the deposit, every 7th of the month, and that's it.
And it takes a little bit off your net bottom line, but at the same time, like you said, you get that time and energy back, and you're on to your next
Yeah. What's your opportunity cost? What's that? What, maybe $400 I'm losing a month? What is that actually costing me in time and opportunity to go look for new opportunities?
I'm 100% with you. I tell people all the time, even if you made $50 an hour and you spend an average 2-3 hours a month, that's the opportunity cost. And guess what? When those calls are going to come in, those texts, it's the middle of the night, when you're on vacation, when you're with your kids. So it's worth putting it off to a professional. But let's talk about now. You transition. You were doing the long-term rentals. You're doing the BRRRR. You did some flips. How'd you get into high density and what you're doing now?
Yeah. I mean, again, I couldn't carve this. I couldn't write this script, in terms of my life and where it's gone. So I've always been a huge believer in self-development. I've kind of already hit on that, but I will pour into the growth of my mind and my body probably more than anything else. And interest rates turned. So we were flipping, interest rates turned. we were holding multiple properties, multi-million dollar properties, and you kind of have some oh crap moments of what are we going to do? And we just kind of leaned in and we pivoted. And during that time, one of the properties that I had purchased to flip, one of the neighbors reached out to me and was like, hey, would you buy my property too? I initially said no, because it was zoned commercial, wasn't in my alley there's nothing that I could do. And I started walking around the neighborhood and we looked, and there's some small apartments up. And I called, made a couple phone calls and said, hey, how do you do this? Or what do you know about this? And here's what I have. Here's the opportunity that I have. And they mentioned complete communities. And I said, what's that? And they said, here's the site, start looking it up. But if you buy those two properties, technically you could put 95 units on those, where two properties that make up 10,500 square foot.
Wow. What's the origin of this? The city of San Diego has this program, right? Complete communities or bonus development. Yeah. Why did they become so pro-housing all of a sudden? The quick and dirty
is San Diego is not pro-housing and not pro-development.
Technically not pro-housing.
Yeah, since 1985, and then we get into the COVID era and all, the secret got let out. San Diego becomes the city to move to. Whether you live in California, we had a ton of people coming from the Bay, ton of people from all over the country. So 2 years ago, the city had to do some research, and they deemed that we were 108,000 units short for not only for the current population, but for the growing population. We have Apple's coming into town providing jobs. We have biotech coming in. We're number 6 in the country for VC money, venture capitalist money, because of all the life sciences. There is money flooding into San Diego. That means we have jobs and population growth in San Diego. And that was like, oh, we have to make a drastic change. Right. Well, San Diego's locked. We got Mexico to the south. We got the Pacific to the west. We got Camp Pendleton
to the north,
the Marine base to the north, and then we got mountains to the east. So you can't go out. You have to go up.
Yeah, they're not developing Camp Pendleton anytime soon.
No. So you got to go vertical, and that's what they're encouraging right now between bonus density, the ADU bonus density, the ADU programs, and then complete communities. We have to hit, as a city, I think it's 12,000 units for 8 years straight to kind of get back to where we need to be, and it's probably more than that because of the growth cycle that we're in.
So all these programs are put together in order for us as a county and a city to reach 12,000 units.
Just the city right now. This is just San Diego City right now.
So you haven't seen these programs or similar programs in other cities? It's just City of San Diego?
This is just San Diego City right now.
Right. And the goal is to get 12,000 more units every year.
You're seeing, countywide as statewide, like you can put one ADU, one junior ADU, one garage conversion. So you could easily do a single family conversion and make it a fourplex.
Right.
But what we're doing is we're taking a single family. We're either going to add 5 or 10 duplexes and make that a 12plex, or we're going to wipe something and we're going to put 18 to 25 units there.
And you can go, when you talk vertical, you mean not just your standard 2-story, you can go 3, 4.
Yeah, originally we looked at doing 5/1 construction, so you got your podium, main level parking, and then you're going 5 stories of stick built over that. For our numbers, it made more sense for us to go 3-story.
Got it.
You're racing the elevators. It just made more sense financially.
And what's the calculation they use? And I know we're throwing around terms, but I think this is really important, that calculation on how you determine how much you can get.
Yeah, so every lot has a zoning specific for that lot now, and then it falls in to some of these bonus or complete communities. Mm-hmm. Just because it's in San Diego City does not mean it
might not meet all the criteria.
Yeah, all the criteria. So you kind of look it up. It's very specific per property, and then you do your feasibility of what's the highest and best use for this in terms of numbers, and then what also makes sense in terms of this neighborhood. We're already seeing some pushback on it. There's a lot of people that are building right now and building 5/1 construction, and they have no parking. So you're going to see a bunch of that. We don't know how this is going to shake out in the city, but what we do believe in, me and my business partner, and what we're doing at Infill Innovations, if we do it, we want to do it the right way. We want to improve San Diego. I love San Diego. We moved here 10 years ago. We absolutely love this community, and we want to pour back into it. So we believe if we're going to do it, we're going to do it the right way, and we're going to add massive value, not only to the land, but to the community and to the city as a whole.
I love it. I love it. And you're right, just when you hit on parking, I can't tell you how valuable parking has become in the rental space. And it's not just downtown. It's pretty much anywhere.
Anywhere now.
Anywhere. So
yeah, so the city of San Diego is going through urbanization right before our eyes.
When we talk about mentoring and self-development, what are you telling the next generation, the people that you have an opportunity to touch on? What kind of advice are you giving them as they're wanting to transition to this space?
Yeah, I mean, I have a 15-year-old daughter. I took her out to lunch just on Sunday. She's getting ready for finals, just wanted to get her out of the house. And we had a similar conversation, and it was work on your mind every day. Guard your mind and work on your mind.
Right.
Work on your body and treat it like a temple. It's been said forever, Absolutely. But the more you work on yourself and you do hard things and you push yourself physically, it translates. It quickly translates into the business world, and that's why I believe that I can do anything. And then third, I already hit it. Proximity is power. You're the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with most. And I'd tell all of my kids, down to my 8-year-old, who you hang out with matters. Matters more than almost anything else in this world.
100%.
And I've just been fortunate enough to be the lowest man on the totem pole in a lot of rooms. And anytime I find myself climbing that ladder, I go find a new room. And I put myself in a ton of uncomfortable rooms right away. But I go offer value to those rooms and learn. That's
amazing. When you are the smartest person in the room, you're right. You're like, hey, maybe I should go into the next room.
Go find a new room.
And I can't say enough about how important it is to surround yourself with people, not just people who are doing great things, but people who are on the right path, have the right mindset, the right cultural values. Because if you don't, you're going to end up doing things that you shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, and the average can't just be financially.
Yeah.
If that's what you're looking for, go find the room of financial advice, but then just realize, hey, I'm just trying to get financial advice. Yes, I try to look for, one of the groups that I was in was all about being a whole life millionaire.
Right.
Mentally, physically, relationship wise, and then financially, and then what you're doing, giving back as well.
Right.
Those 5 pillars are huge in our world.
Giving back is huge also. When you have the giving mindset, it comes full circle, whether it's karma or whatever. When you have the giving mindset, it's huge. And that's why I love having you on here, being able to share openly with other people so they can be successful. That's huge. You said something else that I thought was great. That mindset of that, you can do anything you put your mindset. Have you failed before?
Yes. Yes.
And the short answer,
yes and no. I just truly don't believe in failure. And I know it's a cliche, but I just do it, and I'm not afraid of it not getting the expectation that I originally thought.
Right.
And a lot of people said, okay, then that's a failure.
Sure.
No, if I learn from that, if I take that piece as a life learning skill, and take that advice from that loss, then how can I fail?
Right.
And I love, there have been cultures in our past that didn't even have failure in their language. So if failure wasn't even a word, would it even be a thing?
Right.
We would just look at it differently. It's just education.
Right.
It's just the price of education.
I think you told me when we were talking before a great quote of big failures is actually just a big lesson.
Yeah. Yep. It's just the price of education. Bigger the failure, the bigger lessons you get the opportunity to learn from. And you do. You get the opportunity to learn from. What is troubling is when you say, man, that was somebody else's fault, that you put it on other people's shoulders, you deny the failure, and you don't absorb that, and don't take it to heart, but just, hey, X, Y, and Z happened. Now I got to go shift. I got to pivot, whatever I got to do. But I just keep going.
I love that mindset. And again, I know that we talked about you've been there, I've been there as well, where, hey, something didn't work out and it cost me a bunch of nickels. I had to reach in my pocket, and it was no fun, but I learned from it. And I wasn't afraid to go out and do it again.
Yeah.
To try it again from a different perspective.
Yeah. I mean, I tell people my first job as an educator, I was making $40,000 a year.
Right.
Working a lot of hours. I had the privilege to lose almost 6 figures on a flip.
The privilege.
And it taught me a lot. And I had an investor on that had a 25% equity stake. I actually returned their investment 100% back to them. I took the full loss because the relationship mattered more and the lesson mattered more. And I needed to learn that. And, that's been 2 years ago, and I'm here today because of that lesson. So that really is a privilege to me that I can still be standing, that I can say that on a podcast. Like, how lucky are we?
That's an amazing comeback story, and it's a testament to the things that you're talking about. Also, how many of you out there have a 9-to-5 job as a teacher, as a admin assistant, as a, anything that isn't a real estate investor, and yet, someone who's successful, they came from that same background, and they didn't hit a home run right off the bat either. So it's a testament to how well we can do if you put your mind to it. So
1,000%.
Kelly, thanks so much for being here. Is there any takeaway or anything else you want to leave the audience before we close it up?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of giving back, I'm a true believer. You receive in the same hole that you give through, right? Like the hole, how big of the hole that you give through is the same hole that you receive through. So the more you give, the more you receive.
I love it.
I'm wearing the shirt, Live the Change. That's kind of our group that we put together, that we go now, and we're building houses for homeless down in Baja, Mexico.
Really?
So just transferring what we know and our blessings here and spreading it through the world.
I love it. Thank you, Kelly Gilson. Live the Change. What a great story, and what great words to live by. Everybody else, thanks for tuning in to the Cash Flow Podcast, where we get to talk about turning properties into profits.
Love it.
Take care.